Okay, so tonight I'm going to talk to you about the writing SOL test, the multiple choice portion, and we're all going to be taking that test on March the 11th, which is this Monday coming up. So I'm going to try to give you some strategies that will help you to work through the multiple choice portion. One thing you want to remember is that the multiple choice test is structured around 3 to 4 repeating 3-section formats, and so they'll all look the same and they'll repeat themselves 3 to 4 times. So you'll get a prompt that will have a graphic organizer question or some kind of pre-writing question, and sometimes there'll be 1 to 2 of those. You'll get drafting and revising questions, and then you'll get editing questions. So when you get to the editing questions, you'll know that you have finished with that prompt and you should be looking for the next prompt to look at different types of questions. Now these sections are all going to be based on student writing samples that will be provided to you, so you'll be reading someone else's writing and answering the questions based on that. Each new section will always start with a new writing prompt, always will have the same 3 sections, and will always be in the same order. So that's the basic structure of the multiple choice test. Now, for your graphic organizer pre-writing question strategies, there are usually going to be 1 to 2 questions per pre-writing graphic organizer question. This is the easiest part of the test and really should be easy answers for you. The graphic organizers that you're going to see on the SOL are your web, your list, and sometimes they call that a story map, your outline, and your chart. For this portion of the test, these are the only ones that you will need to know. So there are lots of other graphic organizers out there, but for this portion of the test, those are the only 4 that you will see as part of those questions. Now you'll see something like this prompt here that's for Dinosaur Diner, and a strategy that will help you is to read and highlight what the student is being asked to write about in the box. They'll always give you this kind of prompt, and they'll tell you that the student is being asked to do something. So the teacher has asked the students to write a personal narrative about something that happened last summer. So that lets you know what Zane is being asked to write about. Then you might want to think about what he is deciding to do. So he is deciding to write about a surprising event that happened during his visit to California. Now, what that's going to do for you by doing that is help you to really think about what his purpose for writing is, and it will help you to answer those pre-writing questions that will follow, because now you know what he's being asked to do. Now, if there is something about a graphic organizer, you'll want to make sure that you highlight any word in the direction sentence that tells you what the organizer will be. And it will be pretty clear that they'll tell you that he's going to decide to make a web or an outline or a list or a chart. Sometimes there will be nothing about a graphic organizer, and it will just talk about what he's going to write about. So the question then, if they don't have a graphic organizer, is going to ask you what it is that he is supposed to do to prepare himself to write. So that's what you want to think about. What is he going to have to do to get himself ready? And they'll usually give you a couple of strange answers, like if he's writing about what his surprising event that happened during his visit to California, they may give you something strange like research mountain ranges in California, which has nothing to do with his prompt. So this is where it's really going to be important for you to understand what he is being asked to write about. The correct answer is going to be involving one of these graphic organizers. It's going to involve him pre-writing in such a fashion that he will be ready to write. Once you finish with the pre-writing questions for the prompt, you're going to move on to the drafting and revising questions. They're going to show you his first draft, and they're going to ask you to revise it. Now, the revision questions are going to involve the following things. They're going to ask you to revise for clarity. That means making the writing more clear. They're going to ask you to make the writing more descriptive. Now for these kinds of questions, you want to think about your sensory details. You want to think about your imagery, similes and metaphors, anything that is much more descriptive than what the student already has written. They're going to ask you to combine sentences. And here, you want to make sure that you combine the sentences in a way that takes out repetitive words, but also keeps the same meaning of the sentence. So you want to make sure that it's clear, that it doesn't repeat things unnecessarily, and that it gets the message across in the most succinct way possible, or the clearest way possible with the least amount of words. And then they may ask you to move, add, or delete words or sentences. Now in this part, they're going to ask you where would sentence 3 best belong, or which sentence does not belong in paragraph 4, or which word doesn't fit in the sentence. So here they're going to ask you to really look at the passage and see what fits, what doesn't fit, and what maybe needs to be moved around. That's where it's going to be really important for you to think about his purpose and make sure that you're reading those passages carefully. The final section for each prompt that you get is going to be the editing questions. Now they're either going to ask you to look at a student's writing, or they may create random sentences for you to edit. Sometimes they pull out random sentences that have nothing to do with a passage. So that could be either one. These questions are going to cover your capitalization rules. They're going to cover your spelling rules. They're going to cover punctuation, and specifically they're going to cover comma rules, quotation marks. Those two things are big. They may also cover capitalization of titles. They may include end marks, semicolons, periods, question marks, anything like that. They also may include commonly confused words. For example, the forms of their, the forms of your, the forms of its, the differences in affect and effect, or accept and except, ACC, and then EX, etc. So any of those are fair game in the editing questions section. In this section, it's going to be very important for you to have reviewed all of the information, the packets that we gave you on these rules. You can also look in your literature book, in the literature handbook. There's lots of rules there that you can review that will get you ready for that section. The final section of the multiple choice writing test is new, and this is going to involve research. Now these questions are going to cover plagiarism and paraphrasing, and here they're going to ask you a question such as, how would you paraphrase the above passage without plagiarizing? And what you're going to want to do here is keep the meaning of the text but put it in different words. So you don't want to change the meaning, but you also don't want to use the exact same words. You want to change the phraseology, change any words that you can, but still keep all of the important details. They may also ask you to use web resources to research what's the best website for this particular purpose. In this case, you're going to have to look at the titles of the websites, look at the descriptions of the websites, and think about the purpose of writing, the content of writing, and decide which one's going to be best for your purpose. They may also ask you to use print resources, things like an atlas, which is just a book of maps, an almanac, which is a book of statistics and lists, a dictionary, you all know how to use dictionaries, a thesaurus, which is synonyms and antonyms. So they could ask you to look at those resources as well. So that is the basics of the multiple choice writing test. It will be the shorter of the 2 days, and you should be able to finish it in your regular English class. And it usually has anywhere from 40 to 55 questions depending on the year. And this test will be averaged with your essay to come up with your final score. So the next video that you're going to look at will talk about the direct writing test and what you need to know for it. So good luck on the multiple choice writing test.